Welcome to the Back to School 2020 Tips for Parents and Students with Special Needs. This presentation is brought to you by the Family Support Program and the Northwest Arkansas Community Parent Resource Center. We are a program of Arkansas Support Network. Arkansas Support Network is a nonprofit agency that provides a variety of supports and services to individuals with developmental disabilities. Our mission statement states that we recognize and support every person's right to be included in the life of the community. The Family Support Program is one of several programs under the umbrella of Arkansas Support Network. And in fact, it was actually the original program that started Arkansas Support Network. It was developed about 32 years ago by 5 mothers who wanted to be able to provide the supports necessary for other parents to be able to allow their children to continue to live in and participate in the life of the community. In 2009, the Family Support Program received a federal grant through the U.S. Department of Education to develop the Northwest Arkansas Community Parent Resource Center. With this program, we serve children with any kind of disability, whether it be developmental, mental health, medical, whatever, ages birth through 26. And we are there to help provide information, training, and support to self-advocates and to parent advocates to help them navigate the educational system, whether it be with special education or 504 or whatever type of support that student needs in school. And we work with a variety of different types of families, including foster families, marginalized communities, young people in the juvenile justice system, whatever. And we also work very closely with professionals, not only in the educational system, but with mental health and medical professionals as well, to help find the supports for these students. Through the Community Parent Resource Center, we serve 4 counties: Washington, Benton, Madison, and Carroll counties. So why do we think that the parent is the best advocate for your child? Most importantly, it's because you're the one constant in that child's life. You're there, you get them up in the morning, and you tuck them in bed at night. You know what works, you know what doesn't work. You know what your child's likes and dislikes are. And for some of us, you know what their dreams are. And even more importantly, you're the one person that really, really wants that child to be a success as an adult. Because of the coronavirus, parents are now facing situations that we've never experienced before and have lots of questions and concerns about sending children back to school. Most importantly is, of course, the health and safety of the students themselves, and then you have to include in that the teachers and the educators and other school personnel that are working with our children, and then the families who are also working with children, because whatever children pick up at school, they're going to bring back home. So a lot of families are now having to choose what type of educational system do they want to work with, or what will work best with their family situation. So schools are quite often offering 3 different choices: blended, which means part of the time in the classroom and part of the time virtual, meaning working from home, or full-time face-to-face in the classroom, or full-time virtual learning through a computer at home. And then we have the question of, how is this going to work with children who have special needs? What type of services can my child get in a virtual situation? How is the speech therapist or the occupational therapist going to work with my child who has special needs if my child is at home all the time? Teachers and other school personnel are also trying to figure out how in the world are they going to teach students in a healthy, safe manner. Again, this is a situation we have never, ever had to deal with before. And so they're trying to figure it all out. Sometimes, they're trying to figure things out, and it may change from one day to the next because we don't know really what's going to work and what's not going to work, or what the future of coronavirus is going to look like. So as parents, we can help. We need to keep a positive attitude. We need to understand that the educators don't always have all the answers. They're trying to figure it out. So what we can do is ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. Just don't assume that we know what's going on or assume that the educators know what's going on. Ask questions. And then if you ask somebody and they don't have the answer, find out. Just keep asking. Keep going to different people until you find out what you need to find out. Rather than just, go home and figure out that you're never going to get the answer, you may just need to find the right person to ask. Find that one person that you can deal with to get the information that you need. So basically what I'm saying is communication is very, very, very important. We have dealt with a lot of school meetings in the past, and what we find is that one of the biggest problems is the lack of communication. So talk to people, open up that line of communication, ask questions. I've been in so many meetings where the parent says, I've got a dumb question. And the school will say, there are no dumb questions. Ask the questions. The school wants you to know what's going on. But if you ask a question, you have to be ready to listen. And I mean really listen so that you're taking in what they're saying. And if you don't understand what they're saying, because a lot of times we talk in acronyms and big phrases that people don't always understand, excuse me, would you please clarify what you're saying? I don't understand what you're telling me. Don't hesitate to ask for clarification. Again, the people at school want you to understand. And sometimes it also helps then to repeat what they've said so that you make sure that you understand what they're saying correctly. So because of modern technology, there are so many different ways to communicate. There's face-to-face, telephone, texting, email, and now there's all this virtual stuff, all the various different virtual ways of communicating. You can send notebooks back and forth, any number of ways. So find out from your child's teacher or teachers what's the best way for them to communicate with you. Teachers can't take just a phone call at any time during the day. They're, trying to teach a class. So find out what works best to communicate with that teacher and stick with it. In order for the schools to be able to develop this plan that they have to turn into the State Department on September 1st, the schools are asking parents to choose what type of preferred learning options they would like to do with their child when the fall semester starts. So they're offering 3 choices right now. The first is on-site, in-person, face-to-face, in the school building type of education, which is what we're used to. The second option is a blended option where the student may spend part of the time actually in the classroom and part of the time off-site, whether it's at home or in a library or someplace where they're pretty much doing a virtual academics. And then the third one is totally virtual, where the student does not come into the school, where everything is done on the computer. So what parents can do to help with this situation is to keep up, watch what their child is doing, monitor the situation. Is the face-to-face working? Is the blended working? Is the total virtual working? Make sure you're keeping up with that and have some idea of how well that's working for your child. And if it's not working, then you need to contact the school, whether it's the principal or the teacher or the special ed office or whomever, to let them know what is working and what is not working. And if you don't have enough information about, in order to make the choice you want to make, contact the school. Talk to find out who at the school you can talk to get the information that you need so that you can make a reasonable choice on these options. Part of the plan that each school district is developing has to do with what happens if someone at the school or the entire school needs to be in quarantine. So the school districts will have this plan on their website. So you need to become familiar with it. You need to go to the website. You need to ask questions. What will happen if the school ends up shutting down completely again? Anytime any information comes home with your student or the school communicates additional information with you, make sure you understand what they're talking about. And if you don't, ask questions. Due to the privacy laws, if someone is tested positive for COVID-19, the school is not going to give out the information on who that is because that's confidential. But if your child has been in contact with that person, the school will notify you that your child has been in contact with the person who has tested positive, and that they will let you know what procedures you and your child need to follow. So what happens if your child needs additional supports? Again, communication is very, very, very important. You can talk to the teacher about it, write it down, because trust me, they're talking to a lot of different parents and they're not going to remember everything. So if you can write it down, that would be very, very helpful. But communicate with the teacher what type of additional assistance your child needs. Do they have a communication device that they need, or additional hearing device? Do they use a wheelchair? Do they need a pencil grip, or do they have physical limitations that require specific modifications like a stander or anything like that? Does your child have sensory issues? That can be a big one in the classroom. Do they have a medical condition like seizures or diabetes? Or do they have some sort of disability that might prevent them from wearing a mask? Because the schools are pretty much going to request that students wear masks, and if your child cannot for some reason, then the school needs to know about that. Does your child need any sort of additional supports to ride the bus? Does there need to be an aide on the bus? Do they need some type of a secure vest to make sure that they don't get up and run all over the bus, which my child used to do? It's important to remember that your child, regardless of the fact that they may be receiving special education and receiving extra supports in the classroom, they have the right to be included in all the activities in your school. And one way to advocate for this is to, first of all, understand that you are an equal member of your child's IEP team, 504 team, whatever it is. It's not a us against them sort of situation. Everybody has an equal say. And there are rights that go along with this, and those rights are called IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And there are a variety of different ways that you can learn about those, and I believe those resources are more towards the end of this program. So get to know those rights, get to know your child's IEP, what's in it, what do the different sections mean. Again, ask questions, listen, ask for clarification so that you know what's going on. That's your right as a parent, and that's your responsibility as a member of the IEP team. If you want to learn more about IDEA, IEPs, or whatever it is whatever services your child is receiving, again, we have several resources listed at the end of this presentation, or you can contact us and we would be more than happy to help you learn about those different rights. So here we are in the middle of a pandemic with so many questions, so many concerns, so many things to think about. And we need to remember to breathe. Count to 10. Take a hike for a few minutes. I go out and pull weeds. Take a few minutes for yourself to let your brain rest for a few minutes. Kind of rejigger your brain. Take that breath. It's important. As the parent of a young man with special needs, I understand how stressful and emotional these meetings can be. So what we strongly encourage is for parents to write down, prior to the meeting, write down their questions, concerns, and suggestions that they have. And then take that list to the meeting, or better yet, send that list to the school ahead of time so that the school can address those issues prior to the meeting, and then they can come to the meeting with everything taken care of. Take your time. It may take several days to make this list. Sometimes I'll have an ongoing list for a couple of weeks, and you can add to it as you want to. But this will help you think. It will help you focus on what it is that you want to express in the meeting. And also, I've mentioned this before, ask questions. Ask. It doesn't matter what the question is. Ask the question. You know, schools, educators sometimes talk in complicated terms that we don't understand. Ask for clarification. You know, ask them what they mean by that. Ask them what that acronym means. You know, it's important that you understand what's going on because it alleviates the stress and helps you make appropriate decisions for your child. Because of the coronavirus, much of our interaction with the school is going to either be on the phone or in virtual meetings. And in actual fact, we're very lucky that we have the technology to be able to do this. But keep in mind, even though your IEP meeting or 504 meeting may be a virtual meeting, you and your child still have the exact same rights that you would have if it were a face-to-face meeting. So remember, as I just said a few minutes ago, make a list of your questions, concerns, and ideas before the meeting so that you're ready to go for the meeting. I know it's kind of difficult sometimes, but pay attention to what's going on. Sometimes there are things going on in the background in our home, and it's a little bit difficult, but do your best to pay attention to what the people on the screen are saying. And if, for some reason, because of some technological snafu, you miss something, ask them to repeat it. Again, everybody understands technology is not perfect, so we need to be patient. We need to take our time, and if we miss something or if somebody froze on the screen, ask them to repeat it, what they said. And remember, again, you are an equal member of that team. Most of these team members are going to be coming to you from various different places, either home or an office or a classroom or whatever, and you are all equal in this meeting. So something that we don't really think about a whole lot is what happens if the student has a medical condition that needs specific attention while they're at school. Again, make a list of what that medical need is and what needs to be done about it, whether it's taking a medication at school or tube feeding or a particular type of therapy or respiratory inhalation, something. Anyway, write it up. Some of this stuff may need directions from the doctor or prescription from the doctor, particularly if the child is required to take medication while at school. Typically, the school nurse needs to be aware of this, and typically they will develop what's called a health plan. So that, if the student has seizures, how does that need to be addressed? What do the seizures look like? How often does the student usually have the seizures? What could trigger the seizures? Or if there's allergies, what is that specific allergy? What triggers the allergy attack, and how does the student respond? And how can the school then respond to that attack? So write all of this up. Make sure that the school nurse is present in the meeting so that these issues can be discussed in the meeting. And again, write it down and give it to the school nurse. It then becomes part of their IEP or 504, or it can be a separate list by itself. If the child does not actually receive special education, you can still have this particular medical care at school. And while you're thinking about what it's going to look like to send your child back to school in the middle of a pandemic, one of the other things that you need to consider is transportation. Are you going to need your child to ride the bus this fall? If so, what is that going to look like? Does your child need additional assistance or any specific supports on the bus? These questions can be asked of the special ed teacher, or even possibly better, would be the special ed designee at the school, which is typically the assistant principal. Also, something to consider is that the children on the bus also may be required to wear a mask. And then there's lunch. Have you ever been in a school cafeteria during lunch? It is a sight to behold. Lunchtime brings up a whole list of questions. Where are the kids going to eat? Are they going to be in the cafeteria, or are they going to be in the classroom, or is there some other place where they can feed the students? Who's going to direct the students in the correct directions? Who's going to give them those instructions? And then there's this whole list of questions. Where are they going to find the food? Carry the tray. I remember when my oldest child started school, I was concerned about whether he would know how to open the milk carton. With the pandemic going on, schools are probably going to ask you to send a water bottle with your student every day because they will not be allowed to drink out of the water fountain for obvious reasons. A lot of schools are now putting in water stations that students will be able to fill up their water bottle with. In Northwest Arkansas, we are very fortunate to live in a community with a wide cultural diversity. This means that some parents may not be able to speak or understand English well. When you're in one of these school meetings, they use a lot of technical terminology that even if you speak English, you may not always understand what they're saying. So imagine what it's like if you don't understand the language well. Because of that, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act states that the school must provide a quality interpreter. Not your next door neighbor, not your child, not your pastor, but the school is required to provide a good quality interpreter. The school is responsible for making sure that the parents understand what is going on in that meeting, what all that paperwork means, and what types of services and supports their child will be receiving in school. So parents need to understand that a good interpreter is required to maintain confidentiality. That means they're not allowed to talk about you or your child or anything that went on in that meeting to anybody else. They're also required to interpret everything that was said in that meeting accurately. That means they're supposed to repeat what you say to the school accurately, and everything that the other people in the meeting discuss accurately. It's very important to assure that only one person is talking at a time, because if there are multiple people talking in a meeting, it's very, very difficult for the interpreter to be able to interpret everything that is being said. The interpreter is also supposed to set aside their own personal opinions in any kind of a meeting. They're not supposed to give their thoughts or opinions on anything that's going on. They are just strictly there to interpret what other people are being said. And they are also required to treat everybody in that meeting with dignity and respect. The following is a list of websites that have a variety of different resources that also might be very helpful in learning how to be an advocate for your child. The Community Parent Resource Center is my agency, and again, we cover the 4 Northwest Arkansas counties. The Center for Exceptional Families is also a parent agency just like ours, except they cover the entire state. The Parent Center Hub, interestingly enough, is sponsored by our parent organization. The Disability Rights Arkansas is the state protection and advocacy agency, and they have attorneys that may be very helpful. They also have some information on IDEA. The Arkansas Transition Service is a state organization that helps students transition from high school into the real world, and they have a variety of different types of information that might be useful. This website shows some really good resources that can be used to help you learn how to advocate for your child. The first 3 are actually listed on the Arkansas Department of Elementary and Secondary Education website under their special education section. The last 2 are from the U.S. Department of Education, but we actually have them listed on our website the Northwest Arkansas Community Parent Resource Center. So feel free to look them up and learn. Here are some additional resources. The Tennessee Parent and Information Center, or STEP, has a really good return to school planning guide. It shows you, helps you make the decision, and then also helps you work with the school on what your child's needs will be for this semester. And the PACER Center and the Developmental Disability Council of Arkansas are also just some really good resources that have lots of information on there that might be helpful. This slide brings us to the end of our presentation. I hope that you learned something, that you got something out of this presentation. If you have any additional questions or you would like to talk to one of us, please feel free to contact us. Our contact information is listed right here on this slide. Thank you very much for your attention.